Did you know that by 1939, over 90% of German youth were members of Nazi organizations? These weren't just after-school clubs. These groups were designed to create a generation of loyal, unquestioning soldiers for Hitler's war machine. From mandatory breeding programs to violent training exercises, we expose the shocking truth behind the Hitler Youth. The innocent facade, Hitler's Trojan horse. As Germany reeled from the humiliation of defeat in World War I, a seemingly innocent youth organization emerged in 1922. The Hitler Youth, initially a small offshoot of the Nazi Party, presented itself as a harmless scouting and physical fitness group. Little did anyone know that this organization would become the breeding ground for an entire generation of Nazi ideologues. The transformation of the Hitler Youth from a modest club to a nationwide indoctrination machine was gradual but relentless. After Hitler's rise to power in 1933, the organization underwent a sinister metamorphosis. Innocent camping trips and sports activities became a cleverly disguised vehicle for Nazi propaganda, a Trojan horse carrying Hitler's chilling vision to create a violently active, dominating, brutal youth. For many German children and teenagers, the Hitler Youth offered an alluring sense of belonging and purpose. In a time of economic uncertainty and social upheaval, the organization provided structure, camaraderie, and a promise of a glorious future. The uniforms, badges, and hierarchy gave young members a sense of importance and identity. However, this facade masked a dark reality. By 1939, membership in the Hitler Youth became mandatory for all Aryan German youth. The illusion of choice vanished, replaced by the harsh reality of compulsory indoctrination. Parents who refused to enroll their children faced severe consequences, including the possibility of having their children taken away by the state. Propaganda played a crucial role in shaping the minds of these young Germans. Books, films, and rallies bombarded them with messages of racial superiority and unwavering loyalty to the Führer. The Nazi regime understood the power of repetition and used it to its full advantage, ensuring that every aspect of a child's life reinforced their twisted worldview. Military-style training formed the core of the Hitler Youth experience. Boys as young as 10 learned to march in formation, read maps, and handle weapons. Girls, in their separate branch called the League of German Girls, focused on physical fitness and domestic skills, all in preparation for their future roles as mothers of the Aryan race. As members grew older, they faced increasing pressure to prove their loyalty through acts of violence and intimidation. Some were encouraged to report their own parents for perceived disloyalty to the regime. Others participated in book burnings and the vandalism of Jewish businesses during events like Kristallnacht. The Hitler Youth also served as a recruitment tool for more specialized Nazi organizations. The most fanatical and physically fit members were often fast-tracked into elite SS units or given positions of authority within the Nazi bureaucracy. This created a self-perpetuating cycle of indoctrination, as true believers rose through the ranks to influence the next generation. Perhaps most disturbing was the organization's role in the sexual exploitation of its members. The regime encouraged procreation between racially pure individuals, and youth camps often became sites of sanctioned sexual activity. Young girls in the League of German Girls were taught that bearing children for the Führer was their highest calling, while boys were indoctrinated with the idea that their virility was a service to the state. Forging the master race, indoctrination, and dehumanization. The Nazi regime's indoctrination of Germany's youth sought to reshape the worldview of an entire generation, instilling a twisted ideology that fundamentally altered their perception of humanity. Central to this indoctrination was the concept of racial superiority. Children as young as 6 were bombarded with lessons on racial science, a pseudo-scientific framework positioning the Aryan race at the pinnacle of human evolution. Textbooks were rewritten to emphasize supposed biological differences between races, featuring elaborate charts purporting to show Nordic superiority. In classrooms, children measured their own facial features and those of classmates, comparing them to idealized Aryan proportions. This seemingly innocuous activity served as a distorted mirror, reflecting a warped image of self-worth based solely on physical traits. One former student recalled, "We scrutinized our noses, our hair, our eyes, constantly questioning if we measured up to the Aryan ideal." The concept of racial hygiene permeated education. Young Germans were taught that maintaining bloodline purity was their duty. Biological textbooks included passages like, "Just as a gardener pulls weeds to protect his flowers, we must remove racial impurities to preserve our Volk." This ideology extended to reproduction, with girls learning their future role as mothers of the master race. Hitler Youth members faced constant anti-Semitic propaganda. Jews were portrayed as subhuman parasites responsible for Germany's woes. Children's books featured grotesque caricatures, nurturing deep-seated hatred. Even fairy tales were rewritten with Jewish villains. This psychological impact was profound. Children were taught to value conformity, mistrust dissenting family members, and view empathy for racial enemies as weakness. Hans Scholl, later a resistance member, initially internalized these beliefs. "We had been brought up to despise every other race. We were taught that we were a superior race and that our duty was to subjugate all other peoples." Schools became fortresses of Nazi ideology. History lessons emphasized German greatness and other nations' treachery. Mathematics problems were infused with militaristic and racist themes. Teachers who resisted faced dismissal or re-education. Those who remained were often true believers, eager to shape young minds according to Hitler's vision. As war approached, the Hitler Youth's purpose became clear: preparing future soldiers and SS officers. The emphasis on physical fitness, obedience, and racial hatred readied them for the brutal realities of the coming conflict, creating a cadre of youth prepared to fight and die for their twisted beliefs. Child soldiers and breeding programs, the ultimate betrayal. As the specter of war loomed over Europe, the Nazi regime's exploitation of its youth took an even darker turn. The Hitler Youth, once masquerading as a harmless scouting organization, now stood revealed as a breeding ground for child soldiers. The intensity of military training reached fevered heights, with children as young as 10 handling live weapons and explosives. This was no longer about preparing future citizens. It was about creating an army of fanatical young warriors willing to die for their Führer. The formation of the 12th SS Panzer Division, Hitlerjugend, in 1943 marked a chilling milestone in the Nazis' exploitation of children. This elite unit, composed primarily of Hitler Youth members born in 1926, represented the culmination of years of indoctrination and military training. These teenage soldiers, barely old enough to shave, were thrust into some of the war's most brutal combat zones. Accounts from the war's final days paint a haunting picture of the Hitler Youth's fanaticism. In Berlin, as the Red Army closed in, boys as young as 12 fought with a fervor that shocked even hardened Soviet veterans. One Soviet soldier, Vladin Ankishkin, recalled, "I will never forget the 12 or 13-year-old Hitler Youth boy who fought with his teeth and feet when we captured him." The fanaticism was not limited to boys. The League of German Girls, BDM, underwent a parallel indoctrination process, albeit with a different focus. While boys were trained for combat, girls were groomed for another crucial role in the Nazi war machine: motherhood. The BDM slogan, "Be faithful, be pure, be German," encapsulated the regime's twisted vision for its female youth. But perhaps the most shocking aspect of the Nazis' exploitation of youth was the Lebensborn program. This secretive initiative, launched in 1935, aimed to breed the next generation of Aryan soldiers. Young women deemed racially pure were encouraged and in some cases coerced to bear children with SS officers. These children, born in special Lebensborn homes, were to be raised as the vanguard of the Nazis' imagined thousand-year Reich. The program's reach extended beyond Germany's borders. In occupied countries, particularly Norway and Poland, children with Aryan features were often forcibly taken from their parents and sent to Germany for Germanization. Gisela Heidenreich, born in a Lebensborn home, later wrote, "We were the products of a breeding program. We were supposed to be the new aristocracy, but we ended up as outcasts." As the full extent of these programs came to light, the world was forced to grapple with the true cost of the Nazis' exploitation of youth. Psychological trauma inflicted on an entire generation was immeasurable. Children who had been taught to hate, to kill, and to view themselves as superior now faced a world that rejected everything they had been raised to believe. The aftermath of the Hitler Youth left scars that persist to this day. Many former members struggled with guilt, shame, and a profound sense of betrayal. They had been robbed of their childhoods, their innocence twisted into something unrecognizable. Melita Mashman, a former BDM leader, wrote in her memoir, "I am still ashamed of having been so gullible, so conceited, and so cold-hearted." The tragic legacy of the Hitler Youth serves as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of young minds to manipulation and indoctrination. It stands as a testament to the depths of human cruelty and the ease with which ideologies can corrupt even the most innocent. As we look back on this dark chapter of history, we are compelled to ask ourselves, how can we protect future generations from such exploitation? What safeguards can we put in place to ensure that children are never again used as pawns in the games of tyrants? The Hitler Youth stands as a chilling testament to the depths of human cruelty and manipulation. Its legacy serves as a stark reminder of how easily young minds can be twisted by systematic indoctrination. The scars left on an entire generation of German youth continue to echo through history, a haunting reminder of the power of propaganda and the vulnerability of children in times of conflict. As we reflect on this dark chapter, we must remain vigilant against modern forms of youth exploitation and extremism. The tactics used by the Nazi regime to mold malleable minds may have evolved, but the threat remains. From online radicalization to the recruitment of child soldiers in conflict zones, the exploitation of youth continues to plague our world. The enduring lesson of the Hitler Youth is clear. We must protect our children from those who would use them as pawns in ideological warfare. Only through education, critical thinking, and a commitment to human rights can we hope to prevent such atrocities from recurring. The past may be set in stone, but the future is ours to shape.